Hi, my name is Florian. I'm currently studying philosophy and theater studies, and today I want to talk about something that I regard to be one of the most current topics philosophy is relevant to: ethics regarding artificial intelligence. Bear with me if I have to look down from the camera quite often because I'm not a native speaker, so I've prepared a little script to help me a little bit. So, first, we have to look at what AI is, how it is used, and in which of these fields in which it is used, there is a need for ethical guidelines that philosophers might help to provide. So, what is AI? That's already a question that is not really easy to answer, especially since I only have rudimentary skill regarding computer science and programming. And going off of the intelligence part doesn't really help either, because that would require a consistent definition of intelligence, and we don't really have that. But since I don't really plan on giving one textbook definition on AI anyway, I will simply try to state some general capabilities that an AI would generally be considered to have. First one is learning. An AI should be able to reflect its own behavior and alter it in the future. This might also be achieved by feeding it data or giving it access to databases that stand in for experience. For example, deep learning of artificial neural networks is one approach to create a learning AI. The AI called AlphaGo was created using deep learning, and in 2016 it actually managed to win against one of the world's best Go players, Lee Sedol. Other aspects might be the skill to adjust to new situations and the skill to generalize. I think, however, that for an ethical point of view, there are more important factors than the level of intelligence shown by a particular AI, but more to that later. One last aspect which would be widely considered to be a constitute of AI is autonomy, but there is a slight problem with that. AI, as it is used today, is not really autonomous. It's more unsupervised. It does not make decisions entirely on its own. It makes the decisions it is told to make by developers, but it is left alone in the process of making them. There's another common misconception about AI. It's neutrality or objectivity. An AI is only as neutral as the data going into it. If an AI gets fed biased data, it will most likely act as an echo chamber and actually strengthen that bias. That might be the case even against the intentions of the producers. So, for example, if an AI is used to scan job applications and filter out potential new employees, and it gets fed data about who got accepted in the past, the AI might start to filter out applications of non-white candidates if the employment rate or the employment record shows a majority of white people being employed in the past. Today, the use of AI is widespread. Apps, search algorithms, targeted advertising, economical predictions, the list goes on. The most prominent fields in which AI ethics are discussed today are, as far as I can tell, automated warfare, medical uses like robots that help in operations or elderly care, and self-driving cars. I will focus on the latter because I believe them to be the most tangible to exemplify ethical theories on. Earlier, I stated that I believe that for an ethical point of view, there are more important factors than the mere intelligence of the AI that is used. And now we're coming back to that. James Moore wrote an article in 2006 titled "The Nature, Importance and Difficulty of Machine Ethics," in which he created different categories of ethical agents. An ethical agent is generally something that has certain moral duties. And the four categories he created are: first, ethical impact agents, where there are no real ethical actions performed by the agent itself, but the use of it has moral consequences. For example, a robot that is used to perform actions in an environment that is dangerous for humans has the ethical consequence that humans no longer have to admit themselves to that danger. The second category is the of implicit ethical agents. Those are agents that do not really perform any moral actions either, but rather avoid unethical actions or support ethical ones by the way they are built. Moore himself gives the example of an airline autopilot, which supports the punctual and safe arrival of the plane at the desired destination. The next category is explicit ethical agents. Those are the ones that do ethics, that are programmed to follow a set of ethical guidelines that they implement in the given situation. They kind of make ethical judgments, but only based on how they are told to make them. So their behavior will always be linked to the ethical system that is programmed into them, so to speak. And the last category are full ethical agents. Those can make ethical judgments on their own and can reasonably justify them. An average adult is generally considered to be a full ethical agent. I think the main point to debate in the future would be if certain AI might be able to act as a full ethical agent, or will always be on the stage of explicit ethical agents. Nevertheless, I would say that it's clear that different ethical guidelines and valuations are needed for the different kind of agents. Now, back to self-driving cars. There is this well-known thought experience often used in discussion about them. It can actually be linked back to one of the classical ethic thought experiments. For self-driving cars, it is often the following situation. You are sitting inside of a self-driving car when another car suddenly swerves into your lane. Now there are three possibilities. The car can dodge to the left, dodge to the right, or simply hit the brakes and take the impact. Now, consider the following situation. On the left sidewalk, there is a mother with her 5-year-old child, and on the right sidewalk, there is an elderly couple. No matter which possibility the car chooses, there are people at risk. A mother with a child, an elderly couple, or the people sitting in the two cars that would crash. So, what should the car do? I don't think that there is one correct answer. It absolutely depends on the person deciding. Very similar to that is the trolley problem. You're standing next to a train track. There is an out-of-control trolley without anyone inside driving down the track. And you have no means of stopping it. If it continues, it will hit 5 people. However, you're standing next to a lever that can make it switch to a track on which it will only hit 1 person. So, what would you do? Again, no right answer. But I will use this example to explain some of the widespread normative ethical theories. The first being the deontology, or Kantian ethics. The second, utilitarianism, and the third, virtue ethics. Deontology stems from the Greek word deon, or deon, which would roughly translate to obligation or duty. It is also called Kantian ethics, after its most prominent representative, Immanuel Kant. The basic principle brought forth by Kant is the categorical imperative. It says, act only according to that maxim whereby you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. So, broken down, act only in a kind of way that you would want anyone else to act like as well. There is, of course, a little bit more to it, and there are other representatives as well, but for our example, I would say that we can work with that. Paired with Kant's conception of human dignity that says that we cannot value one human life against other human lives, it would follow that we should not pull the lever, because we cannot value the life of 5 people against the value of the life of 1 person. And we cannot want that anyone else would value life in that kind of way, because then we might get into situations that are quite unfortunate for us. So the second was utilitarianism. I think there are even more variants of utilitarianism than of deontology, but the baseline of all of them is do what will have the best consequences. It was first brought forth by Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill, and even they had different opinions on how to define the best consequences. That is probably the weakest point of utilitarianism, because the best consequences can mean something very different for different people, even when abstracted from the personal level to the societal level. But it should be very clear that following utilitarianism, we should definitely pull the lever, because it would be better if 5 people continue to live and 1 dies, compared to the other way around. The last one is virtue ethics. The main representative of that was Aristotle. Virtue ethics rely on certain ethical skills, or virtues, which help us to decide which action is the right one to take after assessing the situation. The right virtue always lays in the middle of 2 equally bad extremes. For example, generosity as a virtue is the golden middle in between stinginess and exaggerated open-handedness. As you can see, this whole concept of virtue ethics is a bit wobbly and uncertain and does not really tell us how to act. It is more the concept that if we apply a certain virtue in the right way, it shapes our skill to apply the same virtue in the next situation in the same right way. It's basically making the right judgment. So, I could not really say how a virtue ethicist would act given the trolley problem. And given the complexity of our thought experiment with the self-driving cars, I could not give a definite answer to the question, what should the car do for each of the theories, if I'm being honest. Following the ontology, one might say that the car should brake and get hit, because we cannot value the life of the mother and child against the life of the couple. But one could argue that by making that decision, we valued the life of the passengers of both cars as worth less than those of the pedestrians. An utilitarianist might say that the car should hit the elderly couple, because the mother, and especially the child, will have longer lives left in which they could potentially do more good or receive more good even. But that is debatable as well. And even if we manage to make a decision, there is still the question of responsibility left. If a self-driving car causes an accident in which someone dies, which, by the way, has already happened. In March 2018, Elaine Herzberg was hit and killed by one of Uber's self-driving cars. To my knowledge, the matter was settled out of court. So as of today, we do not have a court decision concerning who should be responsible for those kind of accidents. But if that would happen again, and it will happen again, who is responsible for the death? Can we hold the car accountable? The AI or algorithm driving it? The company that built the car? The company that operates the car? The programmers who developed the AI? That is a decision, as hard as it is, that has to be made. Because if we do not make it, we are basically giving self-driving cars, or someone in the group of possible liable parties in the production involved in the production of self-driving cars that I just mentioned, we're basically giving them the power to decide who should live or die, without them facing any consequences. So, sorry to end this on that note, but currently we are not really able to answer a lot of the questions regarding ethics of AI, at least to my knowledge. However, I hope that I could make you think about some of the questions, because making these decisions can and should not be something that is solely done by the companies involved or by some selected philosophers. Those are decisions we as a society have to make as a whole. So, thank you all for your attention and have a good day.